Hey, what's up, guys? On this episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, we've got, of course, Skip and S2H, but we've got a special guest with us, Jeff Black from the Excellence Cartel. We got a bunch of stuff that we're going to cover. We are going to talk about weight belts. Should a newbie be using one or not? Nolotil, is this something that you might want to take 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out from a contest? And we're going to talk about sodium and how that can impact your sweating. All right, guys, let's get to it. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally, and with me, as always, is Skip Hill and S2H. We've got special guest with us, Jeff Black from the Excellence Cartel. Skip's been over there with Jeff. I got to hang out with the guys, and we decided we'd bring Jeff over and hang out with us today. So, first of all, what's up, guys? And Jeff, what's happening, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It's awesome to join you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me here tonight. I know my 9-year-old keeps trying to peek in to see what I'm doing, but I'm like, top secret, bro. Just sit in your room. But it's been nice, I'm having you and Skip on the podcast, and getting to know you guys, and then come back on here and share some stuff. It's great.
Just to let you know, occasionally Scott has a guy in a truck that drives around his. Did you hear that, Skip? The truck was already okay. I didn't know.
Can I speak, or do I have to wait? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
S2H, your turn.
All right, so this guy's dating my cousin, and he keeps, he comes by every time to pick her up at the movie theater, and then they go down the road. So he'll be back in Skip? 40 minutes? He makes his next pass? Okay.
Is that for real?
Now.
Is that for real?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they got a trailer down the road about a mile.
Oh, no kidding. Well, right on, guys. Anyway, this show is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code ADVICES for some additional savings on high-quality supplements. Everything's third-party tested. I just happen to have some Mountain Dog Peri-MD right here, which is legitimately, this is the intra-workout that I have been using now. I'm sold on it. Initially, I had been using the MPA muscle intrusion. Now they don't make that anymore. But I'm sold on this stuff. Skip, I know you're not really an intra workout guy, but you are a team Skip guy. Let's talk a little bit about that later. We're gonna do instead of doing a recorded commercial, we'll go to a talking commercial for a minute. But before we did that, I wanted to dive straight into our stuff because we've got a ton of questions. And to start us is a question about lifting with a belt. So basically, we have a guy here who's he says he's pretty new to lifting, and I thought that this would be something that we could all we probably all have our own ideas about. He says, I have a question as a newbie lifter. Should I be wearing a belt for hack squats and regular squats? I don't own one, and when looking at articles on the net, the advice is contradictory as to whether or not it's beneficial or detrimental. I see a lot of people wearing them in their Instagram posts, so they must be way forward. It must be the way forward, right? Thanks in advance, everyone, on this advice, and recommendations would be appreciated from over in the UK. So anyway, that's Andrew's question. Who wants to start us out? S2H, I feel like you're a guy who's got some thoughts on belts. I've got my own thoughts, but I'll wait to share them at the end.
I'd say if he's a new lifter, either wear one or don't wear one. And I would, one way or the other, because if you're going to support yourself with a belt, then wear one. But I'm not a belt guy except when I powerlifted, and that's not to get too deep in the weeds, but it's for a little bit of a different reason. Because you generally hold your breath through powerlifting movements, so you use the belt. It is support in some of the lifts, but it's also used for leverage and different techniques, because a lot of guys that even bench press will wear a belt. So it kind of plays different roles. Yes, it is there for some other support reasons and what have you, but it's also there for some other stuff. I mean, unless you're going to really get into lifting heavy and stuff, no, I don't think you need one. And depending on where you're at, he said he was a new guy, right? Kind of new to lifting.
Yeah.
I would say probably don't wear one.
All right, Skip. Do I ever see you wearing a belt? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, well, you don't see it because I put it underneath my sweatshirt or my shirt. Because I'm just sneaky like that. I'm stealthy. And it's kind of funny because I'm thinking to myself, Scott just answered that question basically by saying you could, there's two options. You can do either one.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we are going to be taking applications for hosts shortly because, it seems pretty simple to host this show if those are the answers.
Either.
But then he saved it and he went on to make some good points. Here's I wear a belt now. I'm old, so I've been through the don't wear a belt because all it does is give your midsection and your core it makes it weak because it relies on the belt.
Yeah.
And then I had 9 herniations in the same disc, and I went back to the belt and haven't had one in almost 5 years. So I wear a belt when I go grocery shopping, when I go to the beach, if I go out with my wife, things like that. I just make sure I always have a belt on and I don't have any issues. Plus, understand this. Aside from whether it's safe or it helps your back, it makes your waist look smaller in Instagram photos. And really, when push comes to shove, I think that trumps just about everything, doesn't it? Go ahead, Jeff.
So for beginners, I think it just depends upon if you've got previous injuries or not, what your flexibility and range of motion might be. If you have some issues with your range of motion that prevents you where you're not going to be able to get a proper squat or deadlift, and it might offer you some more support, sure. I've always worn one, mostly like hack squatting, rack deadlifting, things like that. But for the most part, I usually do not wear them. And I tell people it's just a matter of kind of playing with it and seeing what your biomechanics are like. We've gone through the realm of and working out to being now everyone's doing a certain set of exercises and wearing them out until that fits your profile best. And then you have back in the day it was muscle confusion. Every day you did something new just because your body needed it. So I kind of fall in the line of there's nothing wrong with experimentation and finding what works and helps you best. So I know that's probably not the best wide open right question, but sure as shit beats yes or no, I guess so.
It beats Scott's too, by the way.
Does it beat yours though, Skip?
It beats mine because mine was strictly entertainment, not informational at all.
Well,
I belt shower.
So Andrew's listening right now. He adds in. He says that he is 42 years old. He said, "Does that change anything on this advice here?"
I'm going to say wear the belt. I was messing around being entertained, but the truth is this. Look, to me, if you're going to err on one side or the other, and especially if there's any concern for lower back integrity, that sort of thing, you're having I shouldn't say integrity, vulnerability.
There you go.
Wear it. Just wear it. But here's the thing that people fuck up the most with a belt. Cinching that, this is my opinion, okay? Other people, and even maybe someone from Elite FTS who's a power lifter may turn around and go, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. My opinion from a bodybuilding standpoint is that belt should not be cinched as tight as you can possibly get it. There should be, and someone else who backed me up on this too was chiropractor Dr. Jake. He said the same thing. You need to have a little bit of a gap. What that belt does is once you get into, let's say, the hole, whether it be deadlifting or squatting, your midsection will press against the belt, not the belt cinched so tight that literally it takes over the support, and the muscles have a difficult time contracting in their normal positions if it's too tight. And it's funny because a powerlifting belt, I don't know if you guys use, I'm an Elite FTS guy, obviously, and I just got a new belt the other day, and these things are so thick and unbendable that you can damn near not get the belt back into the loop once you get the pin into the hole. They're that tight. So to get those things tight, I don't know if you guys use
there's a trick to it, Skip.
Well, there is. I understand there are tricks, but the point is they're not. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not. It is bad that I can't.
Pliable.
Thank you. That's the word I need. Like the old, 20-year-old thinner belts that you could cinch and you could get it there and it fits perfectly. And I think that they're that way because they aren't supposed to be cinched tight or as tight as you can possibly get them. So use it. When in doubt, just use it. I think that is the safer alternative. Even though I'm with Jeff, if I'm going to do curls and arms and things like that, I'm not going to have a belt on unless I feel that I do need it for those those heavier movements.
Yeah. I had a lot of back issues, for a long time. I found personally, I like this. I like the safety of it. I've had the guy I do BNR with, Bodybuilding Nerds, VJ. He never uses a belt, ever. And we're talking there's a point that he was, I don't even remember how many plates he was pulling, but it was more than I've ever pulled. And he never used a belt for any of that. And he's always said, he never wanted to. And he always wanted to be able to rely on his own lower back, strength. But for me, it's been a matter of my back will begin to spasm. Those lumbars start spazzing. I'm fucked. I'm done. I'm done for a month or whatever. So having that stability has been beneficial. Bigger was, I think, figuring out how to rehab my body so that didn't continue happening. For me, we talked about it before. A lot of it was lower glute issues, and that my lower back would try to take over. And I'd be doing a barbell row. Everything was good for 8 reps. And then finally my glutes stopped firing and the lower back just, twists and I go into spasm. The belt would help save me in situations like that. So I guess fixing the issue was beneficial, but I will say I will rely on it. I don't need it to say, do a heavy dumbbell incline press, which that's my favorite lift right now is heavy dumbbell incline press. But to get those dumbbells off the rack and to move them over into the seat, get position and then kick them up, I feel like there's a chance that I could tweak myself the wrong. So I like the support. So for me, I'm going to use it, but I don't know what I would say. I guess I'm going to defer to you guys when it comes to a new lifter.
Well, my point was, is it either don't wear a belt or wear a belt. Don't bounce back and forth too much with the belt.
Yeah, that I agree with. Yeah, that I agree with.
Yeah. Yep. So because some in the powerlifting belt thing that Skip brought up, there's a lot of different reasons why those belts are built like that, and the way you position them to support your core. But back to that guy, I would say if you're a new lifter and you don't have any, Jeff said injuries, maybe you don't have an injury that you're protecting, I don't really think you should probably wear a belt at first. But if you're going to wear one, then wear it most of the time. Yeah.
What about, I've seen a lot of guys that will just put it on for their heavy sets, guys that'll work up to, whatever it is. Let's say they squat 3 plates is the big set. They do 2 1/4 without it, 285 without it, and then boom, belt for the 315. What do you think, Jeff?
I think some of that's just psychological for some people. That last little bit, they're just like, oh, I'll put my belt on. Yeah. And I think in that case, I'm fine with it. I have certain songs I like to get me fired up for a heavier set. So I think just some people have their little rituals.
Dude, I think you're totally right. I was just going to say, go ahead,
Okay, I'm not going to disagree because I do think that there is a psychological component. But I will say, when I was dealing with the back issues that I had, intrathecal pressure or the pressure through the abdominal, cavity or wall was more of a vulnerability to me than actually just the weight on my back. So what I think I found with the belt for me was the heavier I went, the more vulnerable I was, and I at first thought it was a strength issue, that's what's good, but it was the pressure issue. So when I wore the belt and I didn't have those issues, it took me a while to figure out that I think it was more about the intra-abdominal or intrathecal pressure than it was the actual weight load on my back, if that makes any sense. So here's my point in making that point. I think, and you could, the listeners can get this from the fact that there's 4 of us though we have parallels with the answer, they're still completely different. And the reason for that is it is an individual thing. Do you want to wear a belt if you don't have much control over your core muscle, or they're weak? You have weak psoas, you have weak piriformis, then by using a belt and using it all the time, then you could be providing a crutch for those weak muscles. So, are you fully developed? Do you have imbalances from left to right, which are huge and significantly important as a prerequisite to injuring your lower back? So there's a lot of factors there. It's a difficult question to answer, which most are because they're so individual.
That's a good point.
Answered anything.
I relate though. I think, Jeff, you know what? I think like when I was talking about wearing my belt for a heavy dumbbell press, for me, I think it is like a psychological thing. Like I just know, okay, I'm safer now. You know, like I've got this under control. When in reality, the chance of me actually needing it for that movement is going to be, you know, pretty slim, right?
Well, unless those big dumbbells are on the bottom rack.
Right. Next question we have here is, okay, we got a bunch of drug questions, of course. We've got a question about abs.
Psychedelics?
No psychedelics.
Damn.
More like PED style questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here's one. And Andrew says cheers, by the way. That's UK for thank you. Have you ever run high Deca or NPP with low test? Now I know we've talked about this one in the past, but this is a topic that's still getting a lot of play, and you'll get people out there. I can't think of the guy's name, but there's one guy in particular that's very known for liking to do these higher Deca cycles without any test or with low TRT test, and that's it. Now, I know back in the day, learning on the message boards, we were always taught, you know, run the test higher than the Deca, or else you're going to get quote unquote Deca dick. I don't know if Deca dick isn't a thing anymore. Maybe people don't have erectile issues. Skip, what is going on with the Deca situation?
The same thing that happens in any industry or any field over the years, and that is people want to reinvent the wheel. Now, I'm not going to say, because I'm the first one responding to this, I'm not going to say that for some people, you know, higher Deca, lower test, it tends to be a trend or, you know, a phase now where people want to do, you know, either a ton of trend and low test and stuff. I'm not going to knock that. It's not an approach I use. I am old school. Test is best. It's just every cycle to me should be based, or the foundation should be tested and built from there. How much, it's an individual thing again. I think that Deca dick still plays a huge role in the majority of people if you do run higher, nandrolone compounds with lower testosterone. I mean, it typically. Can some people get away with it? I don't know why I would. Let's put it this way: why even risk it when you can just run, if not test with an androlone equally, but with, you know, a little bit higher test, just to make sure that you don't have any issues. Sometimes I don't understand why people feel the need to, I've got to change something up. I got to have something different so somebody listens to me. At the same time, I can appreciate people getting outside of the box. I guess it's a catch-22 in that sense. But I do. I think sometimes I just don't understand the logic behind some of the things that people do, and I don't know if they do it because it's better or they do it because no one else has talked about it, and that makes it more unique, like they have come up with some different concept that no one has thought about before. Now, again, I'm going to preface my answer before you go on to everybody else with, if you've had good experience with it, awesome. But that's where I stand on it.
Anybody who wants to jump in. Jeff, what do you think, man?
So back in I guess right around October to right before Thanksgiving, I did Deca only, 400 milligrams a week, no test.
Really?
And yeah, and I did it because I have a brittle bone disease. So for me, the nandrolone compounds do help me. They help my joints specifically. But what happened was about week 7, I was real fucking dark mentally. And I don't know what that was from, but I started getting in a dark hole, and no matter how much microdosing I was doing, it wasn't doing anything for me. And for those who aren't familiar, I'm talking about microdosing psychedelics. They were the best thing that's helped me with my depression, and I noticed I started going back down that hole. So I pulled out of it. I didn't have any sex side effects or anything like that, but I was very melancholy, very, very melancholy. Didn't give a shit. I prefer more. If I do my, back in the day when I used to do more mass building, it was 600 MPP to 300 tests. I did the inverse, 2-to-1 backwards. But for me, it felt better for me. And I think you're going to have that. But I don't think it's the holy grail. I've done just as good on test cycles with lower Deca and lower MPP. It's just a matter of, I think you find what your kind of preference is and what you like and what you know you're going to respond to based on where you're at with your training and your diet. I think that people don't look at that aspect as much as they should.
Sure.
They're always like, oh, here's the magical drug stack. I'm like, cool, but what's your training? What's your diet like? What's your other stressors in your life like? Are you in a spot where you can make a run? Because that cycle that you say sucks might be really good if all the things were the same that you did in the cycle that was your best. So I agree with Skip on that. It's preference.
How long did you do that when you ran the Deca without any tests, or even when you ran the inverse ratio? Was it, 8, 10, 12 weeks, or was it like a long time?
I made it 7 weeks, and then Jason's my prep coach, Jason Theobald. He's going to come on here, but I told him, I was like, hey, I can't do it anymore. Like, mentally, I'm just like, it's just, I didn't even give a shit about work, and I love what I do. So I was kind of like, there were like little flags kind of going up, and then finally Ashley, my girlfriend, was like, hey, you're just not yourself. And I was like, okay, well, that was the only change I made. So I knew what to do. It took me a few weeks to feel normal, but when I had done the 2-to-1 inverse for MPP 2 tests, I had done 12, 16 weeks. I prefer longer cycles.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
My blood work usually doesn't get hammered too bad like some people's do. Tren doesn't really mess with me too much. If I do Tren, back then I used to do 600 mgs and 300 tests of that. So that was just kind of what I found I liked. This will sound funny, but I can't cut weight when test is above about 300 pounds. 300.
No kidding.
Since I compete around 154 because my legs are a little bit smaller from all the surgeries I've had to walk again, so I have to be in a lower weight class. If I don't have if my test anything above 300, like I just won't drop weight. Like, so the last 3 weeks before show, I'll drop all tests completely and run in on Tren and Master Run, and then the weight will just fall off me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really.
I learned something interesting about Jeff. We were talking on text before this the other day. Jeff is the only person I know who's been on, I'm going to assume it's farm grade growth hormone, since the time he was like, how old were you, 8?
So in 1990,
was that 8?
I got put on. No, I was 12.
12, okay. 12.
Yeah. So I was put on Petropin, the original 192 amino acid version.
No shit.
And then they found out it was really 191. And then I got put on Humatrope, ran that. And then I was pretty much on them, Humatrope and Gentropins for a long time. And I use Black Tops is what I prefer right now. That's kind of, I've been on, so I'll be 40 in September. So you're looking at 28 years of growth hormone use, pretty much off and on.
Let me ask you this, Jeff, was the Protropin, I call it Protropin,
yeah,
everybody, Genentech, in the boxes. Was that study done? Were you involved with a study through the University of Michigan?
No, I was not. So what happened was my mom, this will sound funny, I was short, and I still am, I'm only 5'2", but she was like, oh God, you're going to be real short. So she got me on Petropin, but what she noticed was when she put me on Petropin that my fractures, my breaks stopped.
Wow.
I wasn't fracturing as much.
Huh.
And they took me off of it because there was an insurance issue, and I was playing basketball. One day after working out, my leg snapped right below my plate. I got tangled up and just broke in half. And then she put me right back on it, and then I was healed up and rocking and rolling ever since. So I pretty much have always stayed on it. I never come off for more than 3 to 4 months at a time, and usually that's just kind of like a timing issue or things like that usually come up. It is not a drug that's recognized for treatment with my osteogenesis imperfecta, but I can get all the Percocets I want.
Shit. So you can't get coverage for it then, or what?
It doesn't get coverage.
Oh my God. Oh man.
But like I said, they'll give me, here's your bag of Oxys, man. Have a good day.
That's fucking nuts.
There. All right. So here's what it is.
Scott, how about you, man? Back to our question.
I don't remember what the question was.
Skip, can you tell him?
Oh, the Deca one? Oh, yeah. I mean, I've done Deca only because I think at the time it's all we could get.
Yeah.
I don't really, the only thing I can say is okay, so there was no internet or anybody to tell you were supposed to get Deca Dick, so you didn't already have it in your mind. I'd say it worked okay, and then I've probably eventually found something else to use, because it was in those days when you just took whatever you could get a hold of, and
like Nor 50.
Yeah, we got a whole lot of those.
What's that?
Those were great for a while until you're Iranian Anadrol. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't remember it being like anything awful. I mean, any steroid can alter your brain chemistry. That's what you have to remember. So that's everybody thinks of Deca and they think of I'm going to get Deca dick, but it can also interfere with or alter your brain chemistry. So there's more things going on than your wiener with some stuff. So you have to look at it that way too.
There are other things going on, but I think we can all agree that only the wiener matters.
Well, Skip, at your age, it probably doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, I told you, your wife's been texting me, so don't give me shit right now.
She took my Viagra when she left. So, I mean...
Next question.
I feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know about you, Jeff. I feel like just what do we walk into here? Is that what you're asking yourself?
When you talked about Viagra, I started thinking about that show 1,000 Ways to Die, and someone died from a Viagra overdose on it.
Oh my God.
So I immediately was like, Skip, don't die.
He's come close before.
It's where it went.
Not on Viagra, you dickhead. Next question. Because otherwise he's going to segue into hurry up.
And he is in Florida, so you got Florida man. Florida man.
All right, here we go. Let's see. We'll go to this ab question. How do each of you guys train your abs, exercises, and frequency? I'm still trying to figure out Skip's. Now, his question got cut off here. He says, still trying to figure out Skip's oblique and then the letter M. Method? Do you have do you do something special for oblique, Skip?
No, I've got an issue right now with an external oblique. I don't know if he's referencing that or not.
Huh. Okay. What do you do for ab training? Anything?
Yeah, usually I bang S2H's wife. Like, no one thought I wasn't going to say that. Come on.
I'm sitting here smiling.
Coming. Yeah, you saw it coming. We all saw it.
I know. He'll be off the show in a minute, honey. Give him about 30 minutes.
No, ab
I'm going to the bar, by the way.
I do ab training, not as much. I think there's two ways to do ab training. So let me say this. Or two focuses or two ways to approach it.
Yeah.
One is to make sure that your that strength is there to support or help to support things like squats and deads and that sort of thing. But I will say that squats and deads, I think a lot of people don't understand that there is a lot of your midsection, the muscles of your, I hate to say core, I hate using that, but everybody knows what it is. So your abs, obliques, and everything else do get trained very, very intensely during those heavy movements. And I think that those compound exercises get a lot more credit for back and legs than they do for, obliques and ab work too. However, there are still... You still want to work your abs or your mids through a full range of motion too. So I think ab work for that is what I tend to focus on. I just am trying to keep my back basically keep it healthy in a good position so that I don't get re-injured. I don't necessarily need more ab development at this point in my, I hate to say career because it's not a career, but you get where I'm going. So then there's just development. If you have a thin abdominal wall and you don't have much muscle there, then you're going to have to, train abs, take basically a different approach, and you're going to have to train them for strictly hypertrophy like you would train anything else, chest, back. You wouldn't train them exactly the same way, but the point being that would be the end result. So I think there's two ways to do that. How and the frequency and stuff like that, I'll leave that up to you guys.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in with this? I'm gonna throw in really quick and say that my abs sucked terribly when I started training. Like some people, because I'm waiting for somebody to say it. Like, you don't need to train abs. That's the answer I'm waiting for, because I know there's somebody out there. One of the four of us, I think statistically, Scott is going to say it. You don't need to train abs.
Abs are gay.
Then, dude, my abs were non-existent. Like, I saw veins all over my stomach. I was 3 days out from a show, my first contest, and everybody always told me you never need to train abs. And guess what, man? I had no abs. So just like veins, that was it. I had to drop water to be able to see my abs. So Scott, tell us we don't need to train abs now, please.
Well, I have like a 10-inch scar across my stomach that's really nasty looking, so there's no purpose in it.
Yeah? Where'd you get that scar from?
I got hit with something.
Get real quiet.
Something metal.
Shrapnel.
Well, it had to do with Skip's wife, and I just don't want to bring that up again. So,
let me ask you: you're recommending not to train abs, but when was the last time you saw yours?
Right around, I think right before Clinton was elected president.
Right.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. So, no, I do. My wife makes me do abs because she does all these abs. She has abs. So, I do some. I like to, she makes me do the Supermans and on the ball, rolling on the ball.
Is that where you put what is that?
It helps my back actually too.
You're on the, are you on the ball or on the floor?
The big Bosa ball, and you lay across it and you spread out like Superman and you stabilize yourself on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do those about once every probably, I don't know, year and a half. They work great.
Now, at the end of all this, I'm going to do a little intro for the show. And at that point, we're going to talk about how Jeff actually knows what he's doing. And that's the reason he's on our show with us today. But
I had to bring somebody.
I got to ask Jeff. I know you said, you told me before, a lot of your contest prep clients as a coach, or a lot of your clients as a coach are not contest prep clients. But with your prep clients, what do you tell them for abs?
Whatever they like to do, whatever's fun. I just don't pick 2 exercises.
Yeah.
And just run them into it. Abs aren't sexy. They're boring to me.
Yeah.
They're like training traps and calves. Just do what you got to do to kind of just stimulate the muscle and just get done with it.
How often?
I think for me, it's twice a week. But, in high school, I got into bodybuilding and I was real big into muscle media. And I think everyone remembers Sean Phillips, Bill Phillips' brother, those abs he had. They were just beautiful and boxy, and just my abs didn't look that pretty once I started training them. So, once I got them to like a certain point, I was like, all right, that's good enough. But I normally just do body weighted stuff, planks, hanging knee raises and sit ups. I'm more reps, 4 sets of 30, call it a day.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like I've seen guys that are trying to like load up the machines, go really, really heavy. I don't think the abs are something that you want to do like, 3 sets of 8, I've always tried to go high reps.
I agree.
I feel like, they have one of those chairs at my gym. It's the one where you crunch down and then your legs crunch up. And everybody has one of these machines. You're basically sitting like this, put your hands on the handles here, and you crunch forward, and then your legs crunch up. And I've just put that machine on like the lowest weight, like 20, 40 pounds, whatever it is, and I'll get like 60 reps, and I just crunch them real slow, like get a nice hard contraction, slow negative. I can get maybe 15, 20 of them, and I work up to the point where I can get 3 sets of 20, 60 reps. And I do that at the beginning of a contest prep. And then I progressively will work up to the point I can get like 100. And then every day I train, every other day or so I'll hit abs and just do 100 of those and then leave. And after I started doing that, it made a difference. Because like I said, man, now when I competed, I didn't have a ton of development yet. I was a smaller guy the first time, and my abs hadn't developed a lot. I feel like they've gotten thicker since then from, doing a lot of heavy compound lifts. But the thing that really makes a difference for me, because everybody's different. I've seen guys that are taller, and I'm one of these people. I have a longer torso, and I feel like because of that, my abs tend to look flatter, and they're like longer, more boxy type abs, versus you see the guys that have like the little round egg rolls, and you can see their abs at like 16% body fat. I am not that guy. You know what I mean? It's like my abs are real shallow, they're long, and I have to be lean. So in order to get any kind of density to them, I've had to train them, and I found that's my game plan is I train them when I'm starting to get in shape. And then I do, like I said, maybe 100 reps, and that's it. Maybe 3-4 sets, something like that. And then I call it a day, man. Get out of there. It takes me maybe 5 minutes. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you just add that 5 minutes in, then 2 months down the road, I can see a pretty vast difference. Not only that, You know what I will say does help me with training abs? I feel like when I train them regularly, I can contract them better, and I feel like that helps my stability overall. Do you guys feel that too?
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the reason that I recommend training abs prior to training legs, like on the same day. And the reason that I came to that was because I had all those lower back issues, and I just felt that it helped me to, it may have been an activation thing, maybe it helped with that, but it also just helped me to bring blood to my, get a pump, get the muscles working that are going to help stabilize the weight that I'm going to train for legs. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I'll have less of a problem. I mean, I was pretty desperate to come up with pretty much anything that I could. I mean, I even thought, I'm like, well, I'll train calves first because that'll help to warm up my hamstrings and get blood into my lower body. Then I'll train abs, which will help to get me, warm through my midsection and through my lower back. And then by the time I get to legs, I'll probably have a better chance to not injure myself. I mean, that's how bad it got and what my thinking was for quite a few years. And it really did help. It helped in the sense that I think it helped because I didn't re-injure myself. And I've gotten to a point where I haven't had a major injury in, 4.5, almost 5 years. So I do think that that's something that people could consider too. But when it comes to frequency, I was the same. I was a couple times a week. So I pick it up a little bit more when I'm in a lean or a cut phase, which is funny because logically, that doesn't make any sense because it's not making you any leaner. One thing I will say is I was one of those guys who did not train abs when I don't know if you've seen my stage pictures, Scott, I don't know if you've used them before, when I was natural for the Mid-Michigan, and, I weighed 158 pounds. When I competed when I was 19 or 20, but I didn't train abs for a few years, and my abs were fucking sweet. And that was part of the reason that I didn't train them. But then now, years later, having back problems, I have to wonder if that in any way played into, and I don't know that it did or it didn't. I mean, disc issues, versus, core strength. And I don't know, because I had started training abs and had trained abs, for years prior to that. So I don't know that it played a part or not, but you always question those things.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that'll give you good abs and good ab strength. It has nothing to do with bodybuilding, but if you do jiu-jitsu, it really works your abs. And
that's like all core, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I wrestled and stuff. I mean, it's the same stuff. I mean, you use a lot of core, a lot of abs, and so jiu-jitsu. Go out and roll jiu-jitsu for an hour, and your abs will hurt the next day.
I know Bruce Lee was really big about abs. He was huge on ab training. Ooh, we got an update here. Do you guys remember a couple episodes ago we had somebody asking about increasing their appetite, where he said he couldn't eat enough, and we were talking about options for him. He says, okay, he said, I asked a question last 2 shows to increase appetite. He said he did add HIIT cardio, and he ate fish more often to get more calories in. I'm not sure which one worked, but I do both, and it works. He's the UPS driver. You guys remember him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a couple of weeks ago. Jeff, what would you say to a guy? So this dude, if I recall his situation, he's super active because he's a UPS driver. He couldn't get enough food in to grow, yet his appetite wasn't high enough to allow him to eat more. We suggested that he was to do, and actually I think it was Scott specific, suggested he added in maybe a little bit of cardio, like in a HIIT style cardio. It would be different than the type of cardio he currently does. I mean, I think we had some other suggestions too, but it sounds like he took that one and it worked for him. What would be your thoughts in a situation like that?
I agree with what Scott said. HIIT, or I would say start smoking.
Yeah, that would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no. Yeah, depending upon what strand you get. Sometimes if you starving, might ruin your prep if you're in prep. But other times it's good appetite suppressing as well. So it just depends. But no, I think that was handled correctly. I mean, it's some of those situations. Sometimes you just have to think with the HIIT, with the creating the exercise, post oxygen consumption, the insulin sensitivity. I just think indigestion, that was a good call. I mean, I couldn't have done it better. I mean, what are you going to do? Keep ramming more food down them and tell them to spend $200 a month on digestive enzymes and stuff like that? You could do that, but I mean, eventually that's going to hit a wall too. So,
All right. Let me see what else we got here.
I like the smoking suggestion. That was pretty good.
That's me. It's a great one.
I don't know if you can do that and drive a UPS truck at the same time. I don't know.
So I was like, yeah. I mean,
one-handed.
Poor guy.
All right. It's kind of interesting. Lowest effective doses on he says various basic AAS. So here's the deal. I've seen now VJ, I'll mention him again over at Bodybuilding Nerds Radio. He has like the weirdest response to gear. He'll take like 5 milligrams of Deanabol, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is great. This is all you need. This is all I need is 5 milligrams of D-ball. And then he'll gain a bunch of like water weight from it, and he'll end up getting side effects and have to stop taking it. Like he's super, super sensitive. And so his take has always been, you only need 5 milligrams to get a good effect. But in reality, I think that I've had, at least, I don't know about you guys, I've had a different experience. I can handle a lot more than 5. But I feel like there is, and he and I have had this conversation, but we can't quite see eye to eye on it because we come from such different perspectives. I think there is like a lowest effective dose. I mean, like let's take testosterone for instance. If you go below what you would produce, you're going to have a counterproductive effect. You know, at best, you may get up to the point where you're going to hit TRT. So you're going to need to use more than what your body would produce in order to have like an ergogenic effect. You know what? So let's take something like D-ball. Scott? What would be a lowest dose of D-ball to give an effect for you?
Well, if you're VJ, it's not much. But right. VJ is not. VJ is a different. I know enough about VJ to know that he's a different animal.
Yeah.
You know, dude. I'll give you an example of myself. Okay, I am prescribed HRT. I was on the world's worst, longest year of never taking it, and I don't know. You just go through those times. So I started taking a half a cc. I think it was today. I just had a shot today. So every Sunday, a half a cc, which is 100 milligrams.
Yeah. This
was my 4th Sunday, I think, in a row. And I thank my wife for the shots. She's very good with them. And I mean, on 100, I mean, I feel way different after 3 weeks. Like things are starting to look up, let's just say.
But let's talk muscle building, though. Like this is, that's gonna.
I mean, I've been back training a little bit and stuff. I mean, I can feel the nitrogen retention. But okay, let me back to what you said, Scott. If I'm not on anything, my natural testosterone is under 100.
Yeah.
96, 94. I mean, it's really low. So that could be relevant to how what I am when I'm not on something. So I don't know. I'm going to go get some blood work here. I think it's in 2 weeks, and I'll see where I'm at on that 100 a week. I'm going to say I'm probably somewhere in the high 400s, low 500s. But since I cruise around at 90 normally, that's a pretty big increase. But I mean, I was doing some push-ups and some stuff the other day, and I could feel, what I wouldn't have felt 3 or 4 weeks ago. I could feel, myself filling out some, and the blood moving around and the nitrogen retention, stuff like that. So it doesn't seem like much, but I don't think it takes. I mean, even somebody who's young, like 18 or 19, and has high natural testosterone levels, a TRT dose of 200 milligrams a week would almost, I would think, in almost every case, exceed their natural level.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's real, if it's like quality.
Would that be worth running in your mind? I mean, considering that you are going to shut yourself down in the process, would it be worth doing a cycle at 200?
So if you're natural at 1100 NGDNL, why take 200 to come in at 1300, 1250? Right. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Because you're using an exogenous compound that could possibly shut you down or alter many forms of your hormone balance and just stay natural. But there's a point not long after that where you're going to start to drop off. So I think that's the point to bring it in.
Well, this guy is looking to grow muscle in a steroid fashion, so we're not talking about TRT. What would be the minimal then to say do a cycle with?
Dude, there's so many factors that your training, your diet, where you're at naturally. I mean, I think someone can grow on 200 milligrams a week, fine.
I thought he was asking about orals, though.
No, he just said steroids. He said steroids in general. He said what he wants to basically. The guy wants to do a steroid cycle, and I think what the point here is that he doesn't want to overdo it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are going to tell you, "Oh, fuck, you know, you run a gram. That's where the magic happens." He doesn't want to listen to those guys. He's looking to listen to us, and he wants to run a cycle.
300 milligrams.
Yeah,
200 or 300 a week. Try that.
300,
and that's a very general statement.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I don't know the guy personally or anything where he's at, but I think he'd see results at that.
How old is he?
He doesn't say.
Huge difference. I mean, it matters, you know. So yeah, I understand if he's just starting out and I'll just use the age, an age disparity to prove my point. If it's someone who's just starting out and they're 21 or they're 41, 300 milligram or 200 milligram, testosterone is going to react completely differently to those, between those two individuals. So if he's just asking about how low he can possibly go to still gain, and let's just assume that he's 30 years old. Well, see, it's just too hard to tell because I don't know what his natural level of testosterone. If you're trying to stay as low as possible, you're going to need to know where your natural testosterone levels are because if they're high, just like Scott was explaining, if they tend to be on the higher end, even if you're older, I've got a friend who's 48 or 49 years old and naturally has a testosterone in the 850 or 875. And I laughed and said, I'm like, holy shit, you're in like the 1% of people that are that age. So don't go anywhere near because you'll end up fucking yourself because most doctors won't even allow you to be that high. So he has to know where his testosterone levels are, and that's why I asked about the age. So
he's young.
A very, very difficult question. Oh, he did say he was young?
Well, I'm looking at his profile now. He's a young guy.
Okay.
The guy's got a great-looking physique. If he's still natural right now and he's looking to get into some low cycling, I think he's in a really good place to do that. I mean, he looks like he's under 25, I'd say. I'm just going to guess here. And he looks like he's got a decent base. Like he could probably compete, we'll say, in classic physique right now.
So let's just say that if he decided that he wanted to go as low as possible and, okay, he can benefit from 300 milligrams a week for the sake of the conversation.
Yeah.
It does come back to the question that you asked Scott in that if you are naturally running at, 800, do you want to shut yourself down to run 1500? There's it's a pretty good disparity there. So 300, if you can get that out of 300 milligram, great. I would probably go with Scott and say that probably the 300 milligram. I always feel like you can go up. So if he doesn't get much of a response there and everything else is in order and all the other variables are where they're supposed to be, training and food and recovery, and he wants to go up from there, then he could go up from there. But I wouldn't go under 300 milligram. I don't think the cost to benefit or the benefit would be there, not necessarily cost from a financial standpoint, but running the risk of, like I said, shutting yourself down only to, not have that much of a gain.
Let me go a little bit deeper then on your question or your response, Skip. So if you were to go 300 and you said you can always go up, how long would you wait before you determined if you needed to go up? Because as a new guy, I want to see results. I mean, I know that it's going to take a while to build up, but it's still, man, I want to see results now. So, 3 weeks from now or the next cycle?
Well, it depends on the compound because if it's a long, if he's a sipper and an anthate, he's going to need 3 weeks, 4 weeks before he really sees and recognizes. You'll see the impact subtly prior to that, but without experience, it's kind of a catch-22 because without experience and knowing what to look for, you're not going to see the subtleties.
Yeah.
You're going to see the obvious changes, and that's when you see, oh my God, all of a sudden my bench, all of a sudden I got 15 reps instead of 8.
Yeah.
The obvious signs aren't going to come until that 3rd or 4th week, so you're probably going to have to wait to see. I would say at least 4 weeks, probably 6, 8.
Yeah.
And then decide, and the other thing is, and this is the cool thing about starting low and potentially increasing later, whether it's weeks on a cycle or years, you always have time to go up. There's not this, we're all racing as quickly as we can to get to the finish line for some reason. You have time. So take the time to evaluate and then say, after 6 to 8 weeks, okay. Or you can say, I don't even know, so I'm going to bump it up to 400 and see. And because your levels are already high, you're probably going to see that change from 3 to 400 quicker than you saw the change from starting the 300. So you may see that in only a couple weeks. And then you could be able to go, oh, okay, this is crazy. Oh my God, I want to fuck everything that moves. The fat lady on the transit bus, looked really hot, and you could say, I need to back. I'm gonna back off a little bit. I don't want to, get
do
myself
something
into
stupid.
this type of situation. Yeah.
All right, Jeff, what's up, man? What do you think, brother?
500 tests, 250 Deca.
Yeah,
that's where I'd go. I'd say don't start at the bottom.
I'm just kind of like, he says something that contradicts. So it's like, to do a bodybuilding cycle and not shut down, I don't think that you can kind of get to super physiological doses without having some shutdown. So I think it's kind of like, if you're going to do it, just fucking jump in and do it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think you need to go grams of stuff like you'll see some people say, but I think that if I'm going to go and that was my client, I'd be like 500 tests, 250 Deca, maybe 25 milligrams of D-ball the first few weeks to kind of kickstart it. And you're going to know right then what your response is to drugs. Because if you don't grow off those three and that kind of like the way you do that, then this probably isn't the sport for you.
What was your... Oh, go ahead, Skip.
I just saying, I don't know if Jeff knows, but the guy, Scott checked his profile. He is 4'9", and he weighs 105 pounds. I don't know that those stats were...
Well, he'll be fucking at least 125 by the end of it.
He'll be huge. He'll be the biggest garden gnome in his division.
Yes, exactly.
I say he
125.
I say he just takes the S2H first cycle, and that's 100 milligrams of Anadrol a day.
Ooh.
That's it. And do it for like 6 months. If you can live through that, you're made for bodybuilding or powerlifting. I'm telling you right now.
Don't listen.
If your eyes don't turn yellow, you're the man. Stick with it.
Don't listen to anything. We can edit this part, right, Skip?
Yeah, edit that out,
But you
please.
have to drink every night with it too. That's another requirement.
Edit that as well.
All right, here. What do we got? We've got a bunch more here. We've got this question on nolotil. I know that it sounds like nobody here, present company, has used nolotil, but I think that we've all heard about it. We've got Trey, one of our longtime listeners, is getting ready for the Arnold Amateur, actually. So shout out to him. He's looking good. He looks like he's coming into good shape here. Basically, he wants to know, what do you guys think about it for coming into a contest? Anybody's welcome to jump in here. I know we covered a lot of stuff about SEO, and this would kind of fit in. First of all, this would fit into that category. What is nolotil, Scott?
He's a for a contest. I mean, wasn't Pump and Pose made from that?
No, Pump and Pose was synthol. Esicline is I call it Esicline, but
no, the original Pump and Pose.
The original Pump and Pose was made of silicone, basically.
It was a combination of two.
Was it?
It may. No, I think it just had. I don't know. I don't want to.
That stuff hadn't been around since early 90s.
I thought it was more of a lidocaine.
Yeah.
Lidocaine was in it, but
I don't.
But why am I drawing a blank to the one from Pro Muscle?
Cysteine.
Yeah.
Have Vasodilator that just fills you out real fast.
Yeah.
Like hyperventilate and pass out.
Yeah, the vasodilator though is the basically AMP. That wouldn't have anything to do with that's scintillator. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, scintillator. That was what I'm thinking of. Because all the names sound the same on those.
Yeah, synthesilene and everything's yeah. But what is your what? Scintillator?
Pump and Pose.
Pump and Pose. Hell no. I want to make sure that I'm understanding though, because I don't want to be wrong on this. Pump and Pose is the original synthol, right?
No. Pump and Pose had an AMP in it, and it had.
Okay, I disagree. I don't think that's the case. I might be wrong, but that is not what I got out of it. Now, I might be. How sure are you that that's right? That it was basically.
I know when they stuck me with that shit, it turned me hotter than a freaking skillet.
But what would you take it for? You don't compete. I don't.
Well, this is like a long time ago.
So you just took stuff just for the sake of taking it? Like, I got to see what happens. Oh my God.
Well, how do you try stuff out?
How are you even alive?
How are you alive?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's not get into your little devil's play.
My point being, though, is I was not aware. Jeff, do you know what the hell's in Pump and Pose then?
I personally thought you were right with Pump and Post. I thought it was just synthol was what Chris Clark's version. That came. I just want to say it was just straight synthol. It was the first one he kind of put a patent on and so forth. I think what you're talking about is the Synthilator one, but I didn't know that they had mixed them into a Pump and Pose type product. I thought they were two distinct separate products.
No, well, there was one that came in that gold looking box with the black on it. We're talking probably early 90s. And I think there's an original Pump and Pose, and then there was another one that came out under the same name. That was more synthol related. This was a synthol.
Well, I don't want to. It's not like I don't have opinions I'm going to
look it up because I got to know.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I don't want to talk at length about something if we're not correct and our information isn't accurate on what's in it. I just find it contradictory that there would be Essicline in something with synthol, because synthol is a long term. It's not like a night before the show fix. And Essicline and synthol work completely differently in the sense that Essicline is basically there for inflammation locally. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it anymore simple than that, where synthol is just to basically take up space with oil, and a very thick one that in that particular Pump and Pose, that particular brand or whatever you want to call it, that was, I thought, pretty much the deadly first version or first gen, maybe second gen, where Synthorol that Synthetech makes is incredible. Well, I don't want to say it's incredibly healthy. 10 times as healthy. It's not even in the same league as the original synthols, because it's not not synthol. It's essentially more of a water or a thinner based compound that does not. Well, it dissipates, and the body will break it down much quicker than the thicker silicone shit that'll. I don't know how more people did not die from that shit personally. That's just I don't know. I thought for the first time in the industry that there was gonna be a body count, and I was basically waiting for it, and I just didn't. I was like, why? I don't want people to die, don't get me wrong, but I anticipated and expected that that's what was going to happen, and I don't think it really panned out. Apparently, maybe long term there were effects, but it wasn't as quick. I thought people were going to there was going to be a lot of heart attacks, a ton of strokes, that sort of shit, and there really wasn't. Okay,
yeah, there's more than one generation of it. So you're right on the original, the Chris Clark one that was in the black with the little flames and stuff. That was a synthol, and then there's a third generation that has Essicline in it.
Oh no shit! I'll be damned. Wow.
So yeah, that's where the confusion is on that.
Which totally gets away from the original question, which was essentially just about Essicline. So I apologize for that, but we got into the synthol thing. Basically, the Essicline, and I think Jeff agreed too, it's just a localized inflammation, almost like if you were to just train the shit out of a muscle and then wait 24 hours, and it would be very painful and swollen. That sort of shit. And you got to get it right so it doesn't look fucked up. I've never used it. I had contemplated using it, but I never used it. I did use Synthorol a couple times, but that's more long term than it is Essicline. Essicline is something that you would use essentially the night before. If it's used more than the night before or 2 nights before, like 24 to 36 hours, I'm not aware of that.
I haven't touched the stuff, and I think with how good Trey's asking for himself, with how good Trey looks, man, just go in there and battle among the best and just give it some time. But I think that the risk of what could go sideways with a misplaced shot.
Oh, yeah.
So much. I mean, what if you crack a nerve, or just anything if it just doesn't go? I don't know. It's just me. For how good he looks, I just wouldn't risk it.
I've even wondered, too, with something like that, what happens if it goes pulmonary? That would probably be really fucking bad.
Well, I can tell you this. It's used also, so it's also sold as an oral. It's a pain reliever. In Spain, they are basically advertising it as an alternative to ibuprofen. They've had issues. They first of all, they took it off the shelves. It was over the counter, and now they're trying to get it banned completely because there's been issues. People have died from it. It says It says, however, the drug has been linked to numerous deaths and serious illness amongst British pats and tourists from sepsis and a down drop in white blood cell count. So it's not without risk. You know what I'm saying? It's not without risk. I don't know anything about that. I don't know nothing about this stuff in general, but it doesn't sound good. The thought of taking risks before a show too. Listen, I remember one time, the dumbest mistake not the dumbest probably, but this was a pretty dumb mistake I made. Was I was coming into a contest and I was on trend and I ran out of trend, like I can't remember what it was, Wednesday, and I needed one more shot because I wanted to use it all the way up to the show, right? And guy I knew at the gym, he was like, "Oh yeah, man, I make my own trend." He's like, "Real clean, I'll bring you some, it'll be good." It's real clean, I make it, man, smooth. I was like, "Oh dude, thanks man, you saved my life," you know. And he gives me this trend and I take a shot, and wouldn't you know, of course I tried to put it in the glute because I figured that's the least noticeable spot to put a shot right before the show. Boom, that thing swells up like a golf ball and you can see it on stage. You know, I had to basically hide it. It was not pretty. Had I been smarter, if this was a question that a client were to ask me, what I would tell him is, "Listen, man, like you said, Jeff, you look good, dude. Don't fuck around now." You know what I mean? Let this go because it's not going to be a game changer, right? Yeah,
the biggest mistake you can do is try new shit the night before or the morning of. Like that guy that almost died on me. It took, I don't know how many. What did he take? Like 20 LASIK because he wanted to be drier. Seriously, I don't know if we talked about that before, didn't we?
I don't know. Did we talk about that, Skip?
Oh, he took. Let me think.
Too. Surely 20's better.
Four packs of LASIK.
I don't know. You're clearly a liability to this industry as a prep guy, so you might.
Well, it wasn't my advice. There. Why does he have to be in front of me on the screen too?
Because it's just the natural. Basically, it's called a pecking order. It's like a totem pole. It's like a food chain.
Well, you're at the bottom of my.
You're at the bottom. So
you're at the bottom.
That's how it goes. Shark, lions up here. You down here. Anyway, Jeff, what did you think about it? No, to be honest with you, and I agree with what you're saying too. Unless you have some type of glaring weakness that is potentially a deal breaker, like your shoulders are just fucking horrible, or your rear delt, everything is great, but your rear delts are just going to stand out like, oh my God, where did his rear delts go? Something like that I could kind of see where, okay, maybe take the risk, but don't experiment with it a day or 24 to 36 hours prior. You got to put that shit in that muscle 4 weeks prior to see how it's going to work, what it's going to feel like, whether it's going to make you sick, whatever. You just got to figure it out so that you're not just going in blind. I tell people the same thing with Scintillator. You don't want to experiment or experience that first feeling of wanting to fucking pass out like you're going to die on Scintillator when you're 2 hours before going on stage. And trust me, that 3 or 4 minutes will make you feel like, oh my God, like I think I'm going to go to the fucking floor. This is not good. And then it goes away. And you don't know that unless you try and fuck with it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before in the comfort of your own home.
That's why we used to try stuff. Like you asked me about the S-Clean. We used to try stuff just to try it, to see what it would do, because you didn't really know what it was going to do. And if I remember, I think the time that we were trying it, there was a guy that was getting ready to compete, and so we were like, oh, let's see what it does. You know, it's before the internet and all this, you know, you could read everything, so you just had to go out and try stuff sometimes.
No, I get that, and I understand. It's just not a muscle-building compound, so I don't know. I kind of liken, you know, a power lifter using it as like, I don't know what's going to happen if I slam my dick with a sledgehammer, so maybe I'll do that. It just doesn't seem...
It doesn't feel good.
That makes a lot of sense right there, and I'm going to leave it at that.
All right. Now we've got some more questions here. Skip sent me some questions over from the Intense Muscle message board. Let's see. Where's my Skip questions at? There he is. All right.
Nice show there for his message board.
Skip, I joined your message board today.
Thank you.
The one person.
You don't be a prick.
It's coming along, man.
There yet. Yeah. I've already blocked from the admin panel S2H, I'm S2H, S2H pretending to be Skip, Skip's wife, I bang Skip's wife, that type of shit. I banned him, blocked
Dr.
him.
S2H.
Yeah,
Forgot that one. He's still in there.
Anyway, go ahead.
Let's see. It'd be nice to hear you guys discuss how hard do you think over-the-counter supplements matter? How hard do you think they matter? From multiple ways, such as impacting training, recovery, health markers such as BP, glucose levels, cholesterol, etc., and progression safely in bodybuilding, and where they fall. Do people give them too much credit, or are they being overhyped? Let's now we already know what Skip thinks about over-the-counter supplements. I don't want that to taint Jeff's answer. So let's go to you first, Jeff. That way you can't be tainted by everybody else. Lay it on us, man.
Or my True Nutrition sponsorship, for that matter, too. There's that.
I'll be honest with you. I love over-the-counter supplements. I'm a big believer in ubiquinol and PQQ. I also take, I do injectable L-carnitine. I do that for fat loss and as far as helping the androgen uptake. I notice my test just goes further. Let's see. I do take curcumin. I take vitamin D and K2. Various stuff like that. I think there's a place for it. But I'm about to hit 40. So when I was, 25, 30, or my early 20s, late teenage years bodybuilding, I wasn't thinking about that stuff. But now it's like, well, I want to be around for my grandkids and so forth. So I think that as I've gone through my evolution of bodybuilding of 25 years now, I put more stock into over-the-counter supplements as far as the longevity aspect. But I think that everything has its place, and I wouldn't necessarily, unless I had blood marker issues, like, and I was monitoring my fasted blood glucose and kind of keeping up with, if I had that methylation gene issue or not. There were just various things, but for the most part, I think it's a user discrepancy thing. I'm sure I'm probably still going to die tragically in Hawaii by a great white shark. So I don't think it's going to matter what the fuck I do. But ultimately, I think that there's a place for them. I just think it just depends upon, I think some people get crazy with them. They'll be like hundreds of dollars a month, and I'm like, that's cool. But at the same time, I think that you don't necessarily need the whole kitchen sink.
What about bodybuilder supplements, like things like, creatine or anything else that could, what about enhancing muscle growth? How important are they going to be for, I think that's kind of where he might be going with this. I'm not sure though.
All right. Well, you know how you guys, who flashed the Perry MD bag? That was you. Okay? So I use John's Granite Recovery. I do 2 scoops in my workout, but otherwise, man, I just do half a scoop of his pre-workout, and I just do 2 scoops of that recovery, and that's about it. I think that everything again has its place, but for the most part, I think your intra recovery, your peri-workout part, I think that's what matters most. At least in my experience, that's been the bigger thing.
So things that, I think Skip, you pretty much agree with that, right? Like, because I know, here's the deal. If I recall correctly, you do not like creatine, and you don't really use things that are like for like quote unquote mass gains, incredible muscle growth from this new supplement that's out on the market today.
If I was natural, I probably would try, but to me, using OTC supplements outside of, intra and peri, which I agree with Jeff on that, but to really try to gain and really benefit from massing up, I liken that to having a, highly tuned modded BMW, and you're going to put $5,000 into an air intake. If it's only going to give you 4 horsepower and you already have over 700, are you really going to want to spend $5,000 on it? That's really how I look at it. I don't think that it's terribly beneficial in that sense. I'm not big on supplements from the standpoint of that perspective, like growing and things, because it's a drug show. It's a gear show. You have gear that will take you from 0 to 100 in 2.6. So I don't understand spending the extra money on things that really don't factor in and are really incredibly insignificant. From a health standpoint, I completely agree with Jeff, and I'm very pro supplement when it comes to the health aspect. I turned 50 in a couple weeks.
Oh my God!
And I would certainly. Well, first I want to get there in 2 weeks, so there's that. But yeah, it's an age thing. The older you get, you start to, that starts to weigh on you a little bit. So I do think there are things, and a lot of the things that he mentioned, that Jeff mentioned, I said I pointed at all three of you, but that Jeff mentioned, I use those and completely agree with the things that he said. The only one I think that I don't use is injectable carnitine. I just found it to be so, voluminous every day, and I was like, I already inject enough. I'm not fucking injecting more shit.
I can respect that.
It's like, I'm one of those guys too, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I've done gear for I don't even know, 30 years or something like that. I started when I was like 9, so it's not like I have a problem with it. But on those days when I wake up and I go, oh, I don't have to inject anything to that. I'm not one of those guys that goes, oh man, my fucking balls swell up, I'm going to rip up this workout because I just injected this. I'm not like that. I still to this day am glad when I don't have to, because I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Same.
Oh, man, I tell you.
Yeah.
Scotty?
I've used a lot of OTC stuff, and I think some of it's kind of a pretty broad blanket, but I'll tell you the thing. There at my cousin, he just came by.
You know what? They've been out a little longer than 40 minutes. You're going to have a chat with that guy.
Yeah.
Probably too much Budweiser. But I was talking with Joe from Project AD a couple of years ago, and, I never really looked into OTC that hard to look at the contents of a lot of them. And he sent me some studies and some stuff, and this had to do with branched chain amino acids and different things. And the amount that the human body actually needs, or the amount and the types of amino acids that were in most, not all, but most of your over-the-counter supplements were completely inferior. So you were basically flavoring your water.
But that I think that comes down to the company, though, right?
Look, hear me out. So a lot of people were buying, I'm not going to name any brands, certain brands, a lot of them, where they were just flavoring their water. Mm-hmm. They weren't going to get anything out of it that they couldn't even get out of a moderately decent diet. And so the one he had was obviously much more expensive, but it had a much more complex profile and a larger milligram doses or quantities of each. And so it was kind of interesting. So it made me kind of relook at the OTC market and look at, are we just flavoring our water with a lot of things? I think we are in some cases. In some cases, they could be vital things to someone's, to their needs. Someone's deficient in something, and or that peri, like they were talking about, the peri, intra-workout type environment with a good quality product. I think you just got to look at what you're taking and what kind of product it is, and is it really what you need?
And spending. Because the cool thing with EAAs or even BCAAs, because everybody thinks that now all of a sudden they're completely useless, which I don't agree with, though I submit that EAAs are clearly superior. But the point is they're not expensive either. And neither are the intra-carbs. So you've got a very good cost to benefit here, even if it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't cost you too much to use these and evaluate it and see if it really matters. So I almost look at it almost like a insurance. You're not going to go, wow, God, I clearly have been on EAAs for 8 weeks because look at this progress. But it's something that you can go, it doesn't cost a whole lot. On paper, it shows over and over again that there are all these positive effects. What the fuck? Why not? It's just, I'm going to keep it in there as what I call an insurance supplement.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take this as an opportunity to shout out our sponsor. I'll bring the product back, TrueNutrition.com. I have been using this stuff, and like I said, I was using MPA Muscle Intrusion, which they also sold over at True Nutrition, and then with Matt Porter's passing, they discontinued making that product. I went to just picking up just the straight highly branched cyclic dextrin and straight EAA. I did the math on it, and this stuff came out to be about the same price. And I like the flavor of it. one of the things I like about the flavor of a good intra product is something that's not too thick, because I find that if it's really, really sweet, then it's harder for me to drink. I want it to be real thin, and I want to be able to dilute it with a lot of water. That way, when I leave the gym, I'm still like, I'm ready to eat. If it's too thick, like I've used other products that are super sweet and they taste delicious, like candy, but then after I'm done training, my stomach feels kind of bloated up. You know, you want it to be able to process quickly. So anyway, I'm a fan of that stuff. They also do have high quality products, though, that are of a lower price bracket. So if you can't afford highly branched cyclic dextrin, they have things like Carbo Load, you know, which is more like a waxy maize type product. I'll cut it there, guys. Use our code advices for some additional savings. Everything's third party tested. Back to the show. That is legitimately stuff that I would say, even if they weren't sponsoring us, you know. I feel too, I think what I'm getting from you guys is that part of what you're saying, like the supplements that really do matter for bodybuilding wise, for like growing muscle, these things they almost could kind of fall into the category of food, because you're talking about amino acids, you know, you're talking about carbohydrates. You know, this is legitimately, this is still like nutrition. It's not like some magic drug, you know, it's not like I'm HMB or something like that. You know, it's not something like magical that we're talking about. It's not like something that your body isn't already getting. It's just more of what we know works, and that's going to be carbs. That's going to be protein, right?
Well, I mean, HMB is magical. That stuff is... sometimes I laugh when we come back. Have you noticed that we're coming back around to HMB after almost 15 years, something like that? Yeah. It's been 20 years, yeah, and it's being hyped. I'm like, God. Sometimes, and I understand the cycles and the trends, but sometimes we got to wait a little longer, because there's still people around who know that shit didn't do nothing. You got to wait another 5-10 years for all the rest of us to die off or get out of the fucking sport. It's just, I agree. Food, you know, it's food based, that sort of shit. But if you get away from anything that's food based, you are pretty limited. Let's say you're natural and you want something to work that isn't food based and it's an OTC supplement. What are you going to do? Go with a test booster? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Is a fucking test booster really... Anybody who asks me, hey, should I use it? I'm like, you know what? Take your money and just send it to me, and I'll buy myself something nice, and I'll take a picture of it and send it to you, and you'll feel better and get more out of that than you will buying the actual test booster. If you guys disagree, though, if there's something that... Look, it's not always fun when we pat each other on the back and tell each other how smart we are. So take a shot at me. Come on. Do it!
Real talk, Jeff. Have you used Tribulus? And how much Tribulus does it take to gain 10 pounds?
At least 4 grams up your nose.
I thought you'd have parachuted.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. The only product I've done that's been over the counter besides the pro hormones, the 1AD, is Dante's line. Pre-lab has that Abolic.
What did you think about that stuff? I have not used it.
It's great, but you got to take 4 of it. And, and Jason was telling me 8's the magical number.
Really?
Like what Dante told him. So I use Abolic. I've been on it. I do all 4 pre-workout, and I mean, it helps me with my pumps and so forth. I feel like there's something there, but I'm also on test. So
yeah,
you know, it's kind of hard to differentiate. But I had a chance to be able to get a couple of bottles because my gym carries his line.
Nice.
So try it out, see if I liked it. But some of the natural guys, like some people who do. I had a guy take it for his marathon a few weeks beforehand, and he posted his best time. He says he felt better, had morning wood, the whole 9 yards. So maybe there is something to it.
Huh. What is it exactly that's in that stuff? Is that it's like an ant?
Bunch of shit, I don't know.
There's like some sort of like super ant hormone or something. I can't.
There's something in there. It's Dante.
Yeah.
So I put something up. I'm like, you know what? I'll try it, because he's never really let anyone wrong. So I mean, it's worth trying. That one was one. So, but that's the only one I know of that's been out lately. All the other stuff, I agree with Skip. Send me your money. I'll buy a bunch of LSD paper and tell you about my trips and color them for you.
All right.
You know, it's funny too with that compound. I've had some natural clients use it too, and they did swear that they benefited from it, that it did help. It was slight, but here's the kicker, and we could not figure this out. It didn't affect testosterone levels.
Huh? No kidding.
Yeah.
Isn't that bizarre? I had 5 of them who did blood work and 2 of them had slightly lower testosterone levels. And they're like, well, fuck this, I'm not going to take them. I'm like, whoa. We've been going over your progress for the last 8 weeks.
Yeah.
If your feedback is correct, then just because you're, and when I say it was lower, it wasn't dramatically lower. It might have been, 50 points. And you're dealing with someone who's natural, who's dieting, so their testosterone is barely 500 or 450 anyway, and it drops to 425, something like that, from 450 or 470. Not that it's not enough to notice, or I don't want to say that it's insignificant, but you also have to get into the timing of the blood work, when it was during the day, because you can have those fluctuations as well that may not. But the point was, is there was no dramatic increase, like oh shit, yeah, this stuff is, but it was working based on the feedback. It was working, and the question came, well, what's it doing? I'm like,
Huh.
I mean, that's my professional answer to my client that's paying me a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's working. Roll with it. I don't fucking know. I didn't know why.
We got 2 more questions, and one of them actually ties in really well with this, with what you're saying, Skip. This is the other one from your board. Biofeedback markers. What do you guys think is useful to track during a blast / off-season / prep? Can be daily or weekly things like with calories, macros, hours of sleep, blood pressure, resting heart rate, blood sugar, digestion, appetite, energy, fatigue levels, training motivation / drive, fatigue, recovery from workouts, pumps, like insulin sensitivity. What do you guys think? What are some things that you pay attention to? Jeff Black.
Yes.
That's the answer I wanted you to say.
Yeah, Jeff Black.
All that.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to go with heart rate variability, because when you are blasting, you're putting your body under more stress, and heart rate variability is a lens into your autonomic nervous system, whether you're more sympathetic nervous system driven or more parasympathetic driven. I know Skip has started tracking his sleep. I use a Whoop app, a Whoop band, trap mine. And deep sleep, man, that's one of the things that I noticed, like when my body weight starts going up. When I was on that Deca only cycle, I was watching, my deep sleep was going down. As my body weight was going up, my deep sleep was slowly going down. My REM was slowly going down. So I would say that one, and blood sugar, blood glucose, and your digestion. Those would be your 3. If your digestion goes off, your body's stressed somewhere, and if your blood glucose is through the roof, then, well, you're just not putting anything on but a bunch of fat eventually in time. So I think those are the 3.
Skip?
I don't know. Did he ask for only 3? When you said yes, you meant pretty much all of them, right?
Well, I mean...
that's what I was cheering. My bad. I was like, yeah, all of them.
Yeah, he said list of shit. I'm like, well, yep, can't go wrong there, can't go wrong there. Yep.
Yeah.
If you're saying, like, what's your top 3? Because I think the issue is when I've figured out for myself personally, I think a lot of other people, you can only really focus on 3 to 5 things at once. Do it great. So if you're doing this blast, so you assume you're having to inject yourself a bunch. So that's 1. And then you have to train and you have to diet. So that's 2 and 3. So you've got maybe 2 to 3 more variables that you're going to pay attention to and monitor before you just kind of tune out. Those would be my 2 or 3. So that's why I kind of go with that. Because people try to do this long list. I'm like, I'm a pretty disciplined, organized person now. I'm not even going to go down a list every day and be like, yep. I'm going to watch a few things and then try to get the bigger picture from those couple of things.
Yeah. And I agree with what you're saying. The sleep, I think, is big, and that's one of the reasons it's been my focus, so much more of a focus coming into this year. And it also, when focusing on it, it makes you more, I guess, which goes without saying, but it makes you more aware of your habits surrounding sleep as well. It's not like you're just looking at it going, well, okay, I'm getting deeper. You start to look at it and go, okay, at the time that I went to bed and the times I get up, if I go to bed 2 hours prior to that, or if I go to bed late because I got a lot of work, you start to see those patterns over time. So I'm even going to add, because he didn't say this on the list, but I think patterns are huge. Patterns, whether it comes to anything, whether it comes to your sleep, your energy, your strength gains, the pattern, there will always be a pattern. And I tell this to my clients all the time, and they're like, well, you don't see it yet, but it's happening. It just hasn't developed to where it's obvious yet. Watch for patterns in everything. And not only because that will tell you whether something is working or not, but it tells you not just how effective it is, but it makes things predictable. You can know what's going to, especially when it comes to like scale weight. People go, oh my God, too many people paying attention to scale weight. To completely not pay attention to scale weight, to me, wouldn't make any sense. You're throwing away a tool that can be used. You just can't just focus on that one tool, but you can't throw it away either. So you want to see patterns. What does your weight do the day after a leg workout? What does your weight do the day after a cheat meal or cardio where you're on a non-training day? And you start to see these patterns over time, and it also makes it easier. It's easier on the trainer because you can see the patterns and you can say, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's supposed to happen, this is predictable. But to the client as well from a psychological standpoint, so that you have those people, when you do have those people that focus on the scale weight too much, you can say, you're up because of leg day, you're up because of this, you're up because of that. There's water fluctuation. You didn't gain 2 pounds of body fat in a day.
Right.
It's obviously a water fluctuation, so those patterns tell that. The marker of the heart rate, I think, is important. I've seen since I've gotten back on cycle, I have jumped 9 points. It kept climbing, my resting heart rate, over the course of a couple weeks. And it's climbing, and I'm like, it would be nice if it stops here anytime soon. And finally it did, and it started falling off again. Not just from the cycle itself, but the fact that I was also off with a minor injury for about 12 days. So when I'm off, I don't eat well. I just don't. I'm that guy. I've been doing this shit for a long time. But if I don't train, I don't diet. I fucking eat once a day, eat what I want. So when I got on, I was holding a bunch of water, and I needed to get rid of that. And I was starting the cycle at the same time and hydrating again and, doing everything I was supposed to do. And it took a little over a week before I saw the water start to really come off and that heart rate to drop. So that's resting heart rate is important as well. But patterns, I'm going to stick with patterns because I think that covers a broad area of and it's so vitally important to look for patterns in anything and everything.
100%.
It's basically like the foundation of what you do as a coach, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like you can't really, that's how you help somebody is by watching. That's what you're doing. You're watching for those patterns to emerge.
Exactly. And I think that, we've all spoken with coaches. We have a lot of friends who are coaches. We hear coaches talk online, but I don't hear coaches talk about patterns.
Really?
Often. Yeah. Now maybe they do, or they do it indirectly.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying to a client, it's important, whether you're working with somebody or not working with somebody, especially if you're not working with somebody, find patterns and stuff. That's what your trainer is doing. A good trainer is doing.
That's the thing that. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, one of the things people would say is, I feel tired, but I slept 10 hours. And I'll be like, oh, really? But I'm starting to feel tired during the day. And I'll have to have a significant other, spouse, whatever. I said, ask your wife if you've been snoring, or if your air has been obstructed while you stop breathing, sleep apnea.
Buy a pillow.
Usually they'll say, I don't know, and then they'll ask them, and they'll contact you back and go, yeah, she said I was snoring. So that's the indicator that they're not getting quality sleep, obviously, even though technically I went to bed at 9, I woke up at 7, let's say, so 10 hours, but that was interrupted sleep because of the sleep apnea. But the first thing they'll say is, hey, I'm tired during the day. So that kind of like Skip said, the pattern is broken a little bit. And then maybe like hypo or hyperreactive blood sugar. They have a meal and their blood sugar shoots way up and then drops way down real fast, stuff like that. So maybe the kind of carbs they're taking in need to be adjusted, types, amounts, stuff like that. So basically, something just changes.
All right, I got one more here. This is from Matt Marshall. He chimed in on the show. He was, if you guys remember, he admitted, he was like, yeah, this is me. I had said, and Jeff, I talked about this on your podcast. I was talking about a guy who had used like way too much salt coming into a show.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't recognize. And this so initially this happened to somebody I worked with about 5 years ago. And I didn't realize that he was using like 10 grams of salt per day. And that it just like he just looked blurry no matter what. And back then, my thought was always, oh, well, you can use as much salt as you want. You just have to keep it consistent. And then you won't retain a lot of water from it, You just don't want to go up and down, and then you're fine. That was my thought, at least, years back. And then after dealing with him, and that one, he just didn't get as crisp as we could have. we figured it out afterward, and I've since seen it 2 times. And thankfully, because of that situation, I've been able to call it. Matt Marshall was one of them. We were coming into a show, and he was doing the same thing. He was using like about 10 grams of sodium this year. And I was like, man, we've been working together for 4 years, and I just don't know what it is. He's just not getting as sharp as he was. You know, eventually we figured it out. Unfortunately, he went to the opposite extreme, and I was like, bring your salt down, cut it in half. We'll leave it there. Matt cut, I'm kind of telling on him now. He cut out all the salt. He cut out all the salt at like 3 weeks out from the show, which is also not a really great thing to do. We've talked, we figured it out, but now he's got sodium on the mind. And so here's his question. He says, I've heard Skip and others talk about how much, he says, blood type soy sauce. That's his blood type is soy sauce based off of everything he's eating. He says, I've heard Skip and others talk about how much more they sweat with high sodium intake. Because sodium causes you to retain more water. Wouldn't you sweat less if sodium was high? You see where he's going with this? Because he's thinking.
Did you lose me?
No,
I'm still here, right? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I have to look around now because you guys are full screen. I've got this like IMAX max screen, so there's that. Sorry. Would you sweat less if your sodium were higher? Listen, I do what I do because of my experience, and not because I am smart. I have a difficult time explaining some things, and I'll be honest with you. The sweating is from excessive sodium, but I can't tell you why. And I even actually checked on it after we talked about this the other day. And it's funny that when I did go poking around, a lot of what was said was they don't know exactly why that is.
By what is?
Why the higher intake of sodium. They were basically the things that I came across were some people sweat more than others, and there was even a few things that I ran into that said that sodium did not impact or water intake did not impact how much people sweat. And I laughed. I thought, God damn, you guys have not done any research or any studies then within the bodybuilding community, because an average people, I would imagine that they could fall back on something like that people do sweat differently. I've got a brother who will fucking work his ass off and he won't sweat for anything. Yeah. And yet, but I'm telling you, we've talked about this. I've increased my sodium levels through the roof, and I laughed and said I knew it was too high when I would turn my head and just start sweating. Now, I live in South Florida, so there's that. But we still had warm days when I would train at Armbrust, and, the doors would be open and stuff, and I'd be pouring down sweat too. So I believe it is sodium based. Why? I can't explain why. I can't explain why it is you would sweat more with a higher sodium, other than the body is looking to get rid of it, and it's not getting rid of it. You're holding it. Here's my best guess. You're holding it because you don't have enough water to basically push it out. Your body is pushing it out with the water intake that you currently have, but it's not pushing out enough because there's so much sodium. So it's going to come out a different way. It's going to come out through either respiration, but we're not dogs, so we tend to sweat, where dogs have to respirate to get rid of shit. Like, we're going to sweat it out, and we're going to sweat it out like a motherfucker. That's my best guess.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. And listen, why you sweat more? If you're holding more water, you have more to lose, right? I mean, that would be my thought. I don't think that sodium, because here's what I think. I feel like he's looking at this like sodium, and I don't know either, the science behind it. But so sodium is going to make you hold more water. It's not as if sodium in itself makes you retain it, it does. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not like sodium keeps you from sweating or keeps you from losing water. It just helps you to bring the fluid into the cells. Without the sodium, you're not able to put it in the cell, so it allows you to then hold it, and then you have water in the system that's a sweat out. I can tell you that if I'm super dry, like if you think about like when you're contest lean, you could be super, super dry and not sweat at all. You know what I mean? When you're bone dry, that happens all the time.
But you know what? I have seen people be retardedly lean, and dry on stage. Dry from a visual standpoint. And I'm going to use this name, William Reese. And anybody in Colorado will be like, oh, shit. He was the king. At 49 or 50 years old, he was smoking our asses in the light heavyweight division and has for years in the Colorado circuit and on the national level, too.
Yeah.
He would sweat like fucking river on stage.
I've done it myself.
But he was bone dry. Usually when people sweat on stage, they're holding water in the sense that they're smooth. Visually, you can see, your fat ass is sweating because you didn't get it right.
I've done that myself.
But he was hard as fuck, grainy as fuck. And I'm like, where is the water coming from, bruh? Because it's not coming from sub-Q. And I think that the term hold is being misinterpreted. You can hold, your body doesn't necessarily want to hold onto it as much as it's being held sub-Q, so it's easier, I think, to sweat off. But at the same time, going back to William Reese, or like you said, if you're hard and grainy, you can still sweat. You're still going to sweat. And William wasn't holding it sub-Q, so I don't know where the fuck it was coming, but there was a lot of it.
It's in the muscle, too,
absolutely. So it
goes down to, why do you sweat? I mean, you sweat because your body needs to cool down. It's a mechanism your body uses. So water follows sodium. So if you have a high sodium intake and you have a high water intake and you sweat, you're going to sweat more because there's more water to follow the sodium, especially if it goes to a sub-Q. But look at it this way. Go eat a lot of sodium, go drink a lot of water, go put a shirt on, go out in Florida, Texas, down here and sweat your ass off. Hang the shirt up at the end of the day, and what happens? It's got white streaks all in it from all the sodium you've excreted when your body's cooled down.
Maybe this would make more sense, and I'm going to ask Jeff if he agrees with this or not. If you're taking in enough water to compensate for your sodium intake, to cover the sodium intake, to move enough sodium out, you're probably not going to sweat profusely. The sweating profusely from a higher sodium intake is almost certainly due to not having your water high enough to be able to move the water. You agree with me? You see where I'm going?
I agree with you. And I also think it matters if your salt's iodined, has a lot of iodine in it or not, too.
Yeah.
Because if I have a salt with a bunch of iodine, I take about 3 to 4 grams a day, somewhere in there. But if I'm using the iodine version of it, I will just immediately get hot. If I put in cream of rice, I'll be whoa, going into my workout. And I'm pretty notorious for always getting a gallon, 2 ounces of water. But I agree with what Skip's saying. I think that the reason the body's doing that is because there's a variable you're not accounting for, or something like that. But I don't know. I've just never heard. I just didn't think you could go above 6 grams of salt and really enjoy yourself. So 10 grams is pretty impressive.
My cutoff was about 7. I felt the best on 7. And when I got to 10, because it was more of this is back in 06 when I was briefly living back in Michigan, and I had gotten to 10 and the fullness and everything was there. I still had the same benefits that I did at 6 or 7, but then I just noticed that it was like opening the floodgates. It would just be literally pouring off of me and puddling on the floor. On the floor. And that's just from training. That's not doing cardio. It's not wearing a sweatshirts and a stocking hat like I typically train in, now. That's wearing a tank and shorts, and it may have been summer, but it was still air conditioned in the gym, relatively speaking. It wasn't ice cold, but the point was it wasn't like these Miami gyms that don't even have air conditioning, and you just go in. And I'm training at Iron Temple now, and I'm telling my wife complains about it all the time. And I was complaining. I'm like, I can't even wear a stocking hat or sweatshirt because I might have heat exhaustion.
You're kidding. They don't do air conditioning in there, huh?
It's not that they don't. They probably do during the day. But Miami Iron is the same way too. It's very, very minimal, and I like that from a hardcore. And I love both of those gyms. I train it, and I love them. But I have to be careful because, like I say, I'm a stocking hat, sweatshirt kind of guy. That's just my thing. And I can't do that there if I'm training legs or something because it's just too much. It actually starts to impact my performance, and it makes me not feel well. But that's a tangent. I don't mean to get off on the tangent. But I'm glad that he agreed. The other thing that is important, though, and I was thinking about this when Jeff said this, you have to be careful when you talk about sodium, and I'm not saying Jeff, but myself included, all of us. Sodium is sodium. Sodium is not necessarily salt. Salt has sodium in it. So we do have to be careful from a semantic standpoint that to be correct, we have to refer to it as sodium because it's the sodium issue that we're dealing with. I even wonder too, not to drag this out any longer than we need to, but do you feel like the iodine is more of a metabolic response when you're getting hotter? Yeah, because I do. That's kind of where I come from with that. Because iodine, if you're even mildly deficient, can have a tremendous impact on metabolism,
on your thyroid.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go with the fact that if you are increasing heat, it's much like if you're really depleted and you have a skip load or you have a high carb meal, a really high carb meal, or a cheat meal. That heat, a lot of those meals are, again, going to be, I don't want to say iodine based, but you're going to get salt, potentially, probably with iodine, and that's going to, or could, and I'm reaching here, but it makes sense that is going to impact, from a core temperature standpoint. I would imagine that's probably going to help, on top of the obvious of the calories, the heat from the calories. But I would imagine that's probably a component as well. It's very important when people are dieting to know that you don't want to limit sodium. You may not want to go ridiculously high on it, but you certainly don't want to limit it, not just from a metabolic standpoint, but from contractile. Contractile force gets lost. Everybody goes, oh, it's a pump, it's a pump, it's a pump. All I care about is the pump. But the contractile force, the muscles and their ability to actually contract hard. Pull sodium before a show, and two things will happen very quickly. You will have a difficult time maintaining or getting a pump, and your muscles won't feel like they're contracting hard. That's the contractile force. That's where it's just you contract, but you're like, it's just not there. It's not if you contract a muscle, it doesn't feel like it's going to knot up. Like you have to, all of a sudden stop because it's not knotting up. You're probably not at maximum contractile force, or it's being limited.
Yeah, you need a burger. You need a burger in that point, right? Hey, Jeff.
One of many things, but it's a possibility.
Sorry.
Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. So you are a coach. You work with some competitors. You work with a lot of off-season guys. How long have you, or non-competitors? How long have you coached for?
Maybe 15 years in April.
No shit, man.
I'm very, very fortunate. I own a gym here in Nashville, Tennessee, Iron House Strength and Conditioning. I'm very fortunate to have a good team that's grown underneath me. Our first year that the whole team's been together since my business partner passed away in August 2018, we did 109.4% revenue increase. So
holy shit.
I have a fantastic team that, sees what I see and believes in it. And, I'm just I love training my average Joes and Jans. Like I was going to talk about this, the Excellence Cartel, but I actually fathered a kid without fathering a kid. I've had a client who she was infertile for a while, and she was working PCOS, and her doctor couldn't help her with that. And I helped her with her protocol, and her husband are pregnant. It's only 6 weeks in, but fingers crossed. But that's really cool. And it's far cooler to do something like that for someone than help someone get second place in a show and they're pissed off that they didn't get first. So I'm very, very lucky. I really, really enjoy what I do. And other than that, man, I play guitar. I read a lot. A little bit of a nerd. I'm a dad to two awesome boys. And I'm working on a documentary about my bone disease.
No kidding.
I've got a guy who we're going to start filming as I get ready I'm in prep. I'm 17 weeks out as of yesterday from battle at the river, my qualifier, and then I'm going to go to Masters Nationals. And I'm going to film it along my journey, but there's families that I want to showcase this bone disease about. I have a kid we just did a fundraiser for back in October. He's got issues with his neck, multiple surgeries. My general manager, her son has a type 8 osteogenesis imperfecta son, and he's only one of 3 in existence. So give you an idea, for him, if he sneezes, his ribs can break.
Holy shit.
I'm going to do them. And there's like different families. I kind of want to showcase it and intertwine it kind of with my journey, because I've been the only one to ever do anything to this extreme with my bone disease. And I just kind of want to be able to bring some spotlight to them for all the other people, because since I kind of came on the scene with my OI and the families, I gave a lot of people hope because the doctors were telling them like what I was told. Oh, you'll just never walk again. It's cool. Just enjoy yourself. And I just couldn't accept that. So it's been nice to be able to have family members, other people who follow me along, and encouraged me to do it. So kind of that's pretty much what I'm working right now, and trying to do what Skip's advice was when he was on my podcast with me, Sue, and Jason, which is to write more. So I've been spending more time writing content and just trying to get some of my knowledge out there, and things like that. And, otherwise, man, I'm just glad to be out there and just helping people, because I think that the world's a little bit of a crooked picture, and I think I was put here to make it a little bit straighter before I go. So that's pretty much what.
Hey, you guys are doing some seminars too, aren't you?
Yes, sir. We have the Physique Education Collective coming April 3rd at my gym in Nashville. You can go to www.physiqueeducationcollective.com. It'll be myself and Jason. We're doing Jason Theobald, that is. We're doing a presentation on cortisol and heart rate variability. Vince Pistic is doing one on metabolic adaptions. Jamie Pender is doing one on female hormones. Austin Stout's doing one on cholesterol. Jeffrey Sue's doing a few case studies. And then Lauren's doing her research progress project that she did that's about to be published, if not already published, with fixed meal plans and macros. So it'll be some great information. We're trying to get out there. We're probably going out to Denver, Russ Allen's gym, in October. So I'm pretty excited about that, and just kind of getting out there and bring other coaches on. So we're going to do this one for another one, then drop some coaches and bring some more on. We just want to get more names out there, because I think that a lot of us who are on this, I know Skip can agree with this, the barrier to entry into this industry is about zero. And because of that, you get a lot of bad information, a lot of misinformation.
Take this show, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it this way. This industry has a leadership problem. It has a problem, and from what I can tell from the outside looking in, where there's a group of people who could come to the top and kind of correct the direction it's going. But, when we all make the comments we do about X coach or this coach or that coach, collectively there needs to be a louder voice, is what I feel, and not just where it's like, yeah, I know that guy's an asshole, but not everyone knows that guy's an asshole. So, that's what we're trying to do with that.
Right on. That's cool. All right.
What was the name of your gym again, Jeff?
Iron House Strength and Conditioning. It's Hermitage, Tennessee. It's about 10 minutes from the Nashville airport.
Okay, I'm pretty familiar with Nashville. I lived near there before.
Well, if you ever swing back through, feel free to hit me.
Yeah, it's a cool area. That's a cool town.
Yeah, no, it's booming. It's a economic boom. I lost count of counting cranes downtown at 30 the other day. I was down there. I was like, well, fuck it. So,
that's cool what you're doing too. Taking the leadership and taking the bull by the horns there, and really, I think putting your time into something like that is very worthy. So, big props on that.
Thank you.
When you said that Russ Allen does he have a gym, or are you talking about arm wrists? Okay, I figured, but I wasn't, because you said that. I'm like, oh shit, Russ has a gym, and he's going to go against Dylan. He's been with Dylan for a while. Okay.
I blanked on the name, so I was like,
no problem. Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to, because I know a lot of those guys, and I know Russ, and I was thinking, God, I felt like a dick that I didn't know he had opened a gym, but I thought that was kind of odd. I'm gonna basically say which is weird, that I'm gonna agree with S2H, but I complain a lot, because I'm old and cynical, about a lot of the people in the industry, but it is really refreshing to see somebody, because I refer to the industry sometimes as a giant sea of turds. In fact, even in my most recent article on Elite FTS, I made that same analogy. But it's really nice and refreshing to see someone who has everything in perspective. And you've been around for quite a while, so to see you have an impact on people outside of bodybuilding, like this documentary, and bringing attention to this guy. It's just, I guess it's kind of nice to see that it's not just all about the vanity, I guess, of, how many shows can I win and things like that, which is not to say that that's not important. It's important to me if I could win shows too, still today. But I like that you're doing that, and I think that quite frankly, helps the industry, and it helps us out as trainers, where a lot of people who do what we do don't do a goddamn thing outside of anything that can serve them, I guess. So I appreciate that. That's cool.
No, thank you, man. And that's one of the things, the disease only affects 25,000 Americans, and me and my youngest son have it. So it's very, very rare. And if I can do anything I can to bring a little bit of attention to it, make things better for people before I go, then that's what I'm going to do. And so I'm glad, I appreciate that.
But not even just that. And you probably already know this, but I want to state this anyway. You're also showing people that despite it's a rare situation, there are other situations and obstacles and hurdles that people will deal with that can still, I don't know, almost like a perseverance type of thing, like find a way around. So you're impacting a lot more people than you might potentially think. And you may already know that, and I hope that you do, but if you don't, you're still impacting a lot of people outside of that small percentage that has that specific thing that you and your son do have too. So just for the record.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, guys. Well, let's close this thing up for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear with S2H Skip Hill and special guest host here, Jeff Black. I'm Scott McNally. Guys, reach out to TrueNutrition.com. Follow Jeff. You can find his information in the show notes. Guys, we'll see you soon.
I love that car.